Salam sejahtera, anda bersama saya Nina Rozman dan ini Niaga Awani. Kita akan mulakan dengan perkembangan ini terlebih dahulu dengan kerajaan Madani komited untuk mewujudkan persekitaran digital yang lebih selamat, inklusif dan dipercayai dalam usaha melindungi kepentingan negara, kestabilan ekonomi serta kesejahteraan rakyat. Menteri Komunikasi Datuk Fahmi Fadzil berkata, bagi mencapai tujuan itu, kerajaan melaksanakan program kesedaran berskala nasional atau kempen Internet Selamat KIS bertujuan memperkukuh kesedaran dalam menghadapi pelbagai cabaran keselamatan digital.
Kempen Internet Selamat merupakan antara usaha kerajaan ke arah itu. Program kesedaran berskala nasional ini bertujuan memperkukuh kesedaran dalam menghadapi pelbagai cabaran keselamatan digital seperti penipuan dalam talian, perjudian digital, buli cyber, kandungan penderaan seksual kanak-kanak serta penyalahgunaan media sosial oleh kanak-kanak di bawah usia 13 tahun. Marilah kita mainkan peranan bersama-sama dalam membina ruang digital dan dunia komunikasi yang positif dengan menyebarkan kisah kejayaan, inspirasi dan nilai-nilai murni yang mampu menyatukan, bukan memecah belahkan.
Beliau berkata demikian ketika berucap pada Majlis Sambutan Hari Malaysia 2025 bertemakan Malaysia Madani Rakyat Disantuni di Pusat Konvensyen PICCA at Arena pada Selasa malam. Dalam pada itu, Fahmi yang juga pengerusi Jawatankuasa Induk Sambutan Hari Kebangsaan dan Hari Malaysia 2025 turut menekankan inisiatif kerajaan dalam memperluas capaian digital menerusi Pusat Sebaran Maklumat Nasional atau Nadi Madani termasuk di kawasan luar bandar. Sementara itu, Fahmi berkata pemilihan Pulau Pinang sebagai tuan rumah Sambutan Hari Malaysia mencerminkan hasrat kerajaan untuk memastikan sambutan kebangsaan yang lebih inklusif dan menyeluruh berentasi Semenanjung, Sabah dan Sarawak. Sambutan Hari Malaysia kali ini berlangsung di Pulau Pinang selaras amalan penggiliran lokasi antara Sabah, Sarawak dan Semenanjung Malaysia setiap tahun.
Artificial intelligence and tokenizations are no longer just buzzwords. They're reshaping the very foundation of finance. In 2025, we've seen AI-driven crypto platforms emerge, real-world assets like real estates and carbon credits being tokenized, and regulators like the Securities Commission Malaysia launching sandboxes to accelerate innovation in digital finance. And to help us understand better on this situation, we have ready on the line is Aaron Tang, General Manager for APAC Luno Malaysia. I want to say thank you very much, Aaron, for joining me after such a very long holiday and happy Malaysia Day. How are you, Aaron?
I'm good. Thank you, Nina, and happy Malaysia Day to you as well.
Thank you. Firstly, Aaron, talking deeper into our conversation, we know that crypto has gone through many cycles, but we're now seeing two powerful forces, AI and tokenizations, reshaping the space. From your own POV, how are these trends redefining the future of finance?
Very, very interesting concepts indeed, Nina. So the way I think about AI, it's like a super smart assistant. It's something that helps us and it can do really, really cool things. For example, number one, it can analyze tons of data to spot scams, for example, or bad things happening. Number two, it could help design smarter trading tools or investment strategies. And of course, I think we know AI, number three, it can make processes more efficient, it can make things faster and safer. Now, when I think about tokenization to me is about turning real-world assets. When we talk about real-world assets, this could be the stocks, it could be property, it could be art, turning them into digital tokens where you can trade online. So it could make things much easier in terms of investing. So instead of buying a huge piece of a property or something, you could buy a slice of something big, say 1% of a project or something like that. So I think it's really interesting when you use AI and tokenization together because it allows you to do very, very interesting things. So for example, it could break down barriers that you see between that currently exist between, say, traditional finance, for example, banks or stocks or traditional assets, and the newer forms of investing, for example, those that exist in the digital asset world. And I think most importantly, it's going to make money and investing feel very, very natural. It's just like using your phone and an app today. And these are the things that will enable this kind of good kind of experiences for customers.
Definitely, we take a look at this transition to a better, faster, and even safer when we talk about in terms of investment and trading. I like what you mentioned also. This is also giving a new opportunity for us to like buy a slice rather than the big chunk of it. And most of it, it's very important that we can see all of this trends. It's also like we can say it's covering all the gaps within the traditional finance, investment, trading into a new form of trading and investing. And AI is everywhere now, Aaron, but how is it specifically influencing the crypto and DeFi ecosystem beyond just being a productivity tool?
So just beyond being productivity tool, right? Something quite interesting that AI can help with is things related to trading and investing, because AI is actually really good at scanning huge amounts of data. They can do data processing so much faster than humans can do it. So what this means is AI can help us in spotting things that humans might miss. For examples, they can look at behaviors of people making trades and so on. And this can actually lead to things like fraud detection, or if someone is trying to manipulate the market and so on. AI may actually be able to detect it much faster than, say, a team of humans. So it's a very, very powerful tool. And another angle I want to bring up is, for example, AI can also help with things like risk management and credit scoring, because traditionally these kind of functions may require a little bit more human intervention. But again, with AI tools, you can crunch so much data so fast, you can actually make a lot of productivity gains in some of these traditional functions.
Do you see we can say that from your vantage point at Luno, are you seeing AI playing a role in areas like user education, and then also the fraud detection, as you mentioned, or even trading behavior or any other aspect that we can see from the structure?
Definitely in terms of things like fraud detection and what I mentioned earlier, detecting market manipulation. So if people are trying to manipulate the markets in a bad way, the tools that we use today, they are also very, very much empowered and supported by AI. So that's already being implemented in our tech stack, as they call it. And I think one interesting angle that we have already implemented AI is in terms of interactive education. So when you reach out to our platform, or you go on our platform today, we actually use AI to actually help users. So for example, it could be late at night or early in the morning where humans are actually not online yet, but customers are actually able to interact with Luno if they have any questions and so on. The AI is helping us answer some questions and also educate the users.
And do you see any risks or misconception about using AI in financial platforms that the industry needs to be more aware of?
I think it's very, very natural for us to fall into this false sense of security, right? Because AI is like very, very smart. It can do so many things. So I think that the risk is when people trust AI completely. They trust the black box, right? Whatever the AI says, okay, I'm not going to use human judgment anymore. I'm just going to follow whatever the AI says. Now, that is obviously a big, big challenge. I think ultimately humans are really good at judgment. We're good at wisdom, right? So we should not be following 100% what the AI says. We should be using it as a tool to help us, for example, crunch a huge amount of data. But ultimately, especially when it comes to sensitive decisions, human judgment is probably going to be very, very important here.
Correct. Despite that we have AI as a tool, we also still need the human function within the operation. And tokenization is starting to reshape also how we view assets, from real estate to even carbon credits. How do you think this impacts investor behavior, especially in the Southeast Asia?
Yeah, very, very exciting developments, Nina, here, because tokenization can actually help democratize access to investments that were previously out of reach. So the example that I gave earlier, not many of us can afford to buy a building or, even invest in a property project, right? But if, for example, the benefits of tokenization are realized, for example, if we can fractionalize investing in property into smaller tokens, that may allow people to invest in these smaller fractions. Now, that's the first benefit. Now, apart from that, there's things that can happen, like it will enable people to diversify their portfolios. So for example, previously, most people are investing in, say, the EPF, or most people are buying a little bit of Amanah Saham or stocks. but they will be able to diversify their portfolios with tokenization, because now people have access to many, many other investments. And I think that's good because it gives people choices. It gives people the ability to diversify. And I think lastly, tokenization also allows cross-border opportunities, because before this, sometimes we're quite limited by geography. So if I'm Malaysian, I typically invest all my money in Malaysian assets. But if tokenization benefits are realized, I may be able to access very, very easily assets in other parts of the world, whether I want to invest in, say, Japanese assets or Hong Kong or US and so on.
This definitely we can see opportunities across region. And take a look at the Securities Commission Malaysia that launched a tokenization sandbox last year. How do you see this shaping the regulatory or innovation landscape here?
Yeah, it's again very, very exciting, right, Nina? Because I think the challenge that many financial services or many financial service teams who are thinking about launching something, they are very worried because financial services, we need to be compliant, right? We need to make sure that everything we do is not risky in terms of, say, money laundering and so on. So that's a short way of saying that, well, that's a long way of saying that compliance costs is actually a very real thing. But when you have a sandbox, I think this allows a lot more innovation to happen, at least in the short term. A sandbox gives people a space to experiment and so on. And then when you get to a certain size, a certain level of success, that's when more of the what do you call that? For example, compliance items can be built in and so on and scaled at that point of time. So it's a very, very interesting thing for projects, because it allows companies to start small and then prove their business case. And I think more broadly speaking, it's a very, very good initiative for Malaysia as a whole, because this is basically signifying to the people, the entrepreneurs, the tech community, the financial community, that Malaysia has very, very big ambitions, that we want to grow in this area of digital assets. And I think that's really, really good for the country, and it's a step definitely in the right direction.
And we're talking about the future of finance, AI and tokenizations, and your personal view, if you had to choose AI or tokenization, or utilization of AI 70% or tokenization 30%, it might changes or how you utilize the capacity of utilization on your own personal. But which do you think will have a bigger long-term impact on finance in the next 5 years, and why?
Tough question, because you're asking me to choose. I mean, ideally, both is gonna happen. Both is gonna help, right? But I think tokenization effects is quite clear for us to see today. The things that we spoke about, right? Giving investors more access, making things available to customers from different parts of the world. I think those are the things that we're already seeing happen today. So it's very, very clear that tokenization benefits are very concrete, and they're being adopted all over the world right now. In terms of AI, I think AI, we're still at the start of it, so it may be a little bit harder to see what are the benefits of AI on finance in a couple of years. It may be a bit hard to predict at the moment. So if you ask me to choose, I'm going to say tokenization is very clear right now. But of course, as with any technology, everything is going to help us because they're basically tools for us to lead to a better future.
All right, we know that AI and tokenization is not only the new tool or is trading within the trading and investment ecosystem, but it's also the future of finance. And thank you, Aaron Tang, for helping us understand all the risks and opportunity from this. And again, I hope we can have more conversation on this. Again, thank you very much, Aaron Tang, the General Manager for APAC Luno Malaysia. And definitely all of our discussion here will be featured in AstroAwani.com and across all social media platforms. Malaysia menyasarkan untuk muncul sebagai hub perikanan tuna serantau hasil kerjasama strategik antara kerajaan dan sektor swasta dalam memperkukuh industri perikanan laut dalam negara. Timbalan Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi berkata langkah itu dimulakan dengan pemeteraian perjanjian kerjasama strategik serta pelancaran produk tuna premium Shinkai Origin di Pulau Pinang bersempena sambutan Hari Malaysia pada Selasa. Beliau menghargai keberanian sektor swasta Malaysia yang tampil sebagai peneraju industri perikanan laut dalam serantau Menurut beliau, fasiliti pendaratan tuna sejuk buku bersuhu negatif 60 darjah Celsius bertaraf Kesatuan Eropah EU yang kini beroperasi di Penang Port membuktikan kesediaan Malaysia untuk merebut peluang pasaran tuna global yang dianggarkan bernilai $42 bilion Amerika. Inisiatif ini juga dilihat sebagai pemangkin kepada agenda ekonomi biru dan usaha memperkukuh sekuriti makanan negara selain membuka peluang besar kepada pembangunan TVET maritim untuk golongan belia. Selaku pengerusi Majlis TVET Negara, Ahmad Zahid juga akan memastikan latihan kemahiran bagi ribuan pekerja yang diperlukan dalam aktiviti hiliran industri itu dipermudahkan. Sejumlah 2,257 usahawan dari seluruh negara menerima manfaat menerusi penyertaan dalam program Maju Usahawan Madani 2025 MUM kelolaan Centre for Entrepreneur Development and Research CEDAR setakat ini. Menurut Timbalan Menteri Pembangunan Usahawan dan Koperasi KUSKOP, Datuk Sri Aramanan, daripada jumlah perkenaan, golongan usahawan wanita mendominasi dengan sejumlah 1,674 penyertaan. Jelasnya lagi, penyertaan wanita 3 kali ganda lebih banyak daripada usahawan lelaki yang cuma merekodkan sejumlah 583 orang dan beliau berharap selepas ini akan lebih banyak usahawan lelaki mengambil bahagian dalam program ini. MUM ini ujarnya membuka peluang untuk usahawan belajar mengembangkan perniagaan, melibatkan strategi membuat penjimatan perdigitalan serta bagaimana kita boleh memanfaatkan teknologi AI kecerdasan buatan. Ramanan berkata hasil penyertaan menggalakkan diterima setakat ini. Beliau yakin platform MUM akan berjaya melahirkan lebih banyak usahawan yang memanfaatkan teknologi dan perdigitalan dalam perniagaan mereka. Ini termasuklah pembelajaran dan pemahaman dalam strategi pengurusan kredit mengenai e-invoicing dan amalan alam sekitar, sosial dan tadbir urus ESG. Baik, ini adalah perkembangan yang baru kami terima. Seorang petugas Sabah Electricity sedang berehat hilang dihanyutkan arus deras ketika bertugas di sebuah kampung di Keningau lewat malam Selasa. Sabah Electricity dalam kenyataan pada Rabu memaklumkan pasukan penyelamat bersama dengan pihak berkuasa berkaitan telah digerakkan ke lokasi kejadian dan usaha pencarian sedang giat dijalankan. Keutamaan pihaknya ketika ini adalah keselamatan serta kebajikan kaki tangan yang terlibat di samping memberikan sokongan penuh kepada keluarga mangsa. Sabah Electricity akan terus bekerjasama rapat dengan pihak berkuasa dalam operasi ini dan akan memaklumkan perkembangan lanjut dari semasa ke semasa. Sabah Electricity turut memohon semua pihak agar menghormati sensitiviti situasi ini dan memberi ruang kepada keluarga mangsa yang sedang melalui detik sukar. Terdahulu, tular di media sosial video memaparkan kenderaan pacuan 4 roda syarikat itu yang terperangkap dalam banjir dengan arus deras dan memaklumkan pasukan berkenaan sedang melaksanakan operasi pemulihan kerana kampung terbabit terputus bekalan elektrik. Keningau merupakan sebuah daerah di pedalaman Sabah yang terletak kira-kira 10 km arah selatan dari Kota Kinabalu. Malaysia has climbed to 25th place in the latest global talent ranking, a notable rise that places us second in Southeast Asia, just behind Singapore. But behind the headlines, questions remains. Are businesses truly seeing this progress on the ground? Are we ready for the digital future, or are we still playing catch-up in STEM and apprenticeships? Joining us today for the first time on Niaga AWANI is Kit Wong, Chief Financial Officer of CARSM. I want to say thank you very much, Kit, for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Firstly, beyond the numbers, Malaysia has climbed to 25th place in the World Talent Ranking. Do you think this reflects the real situation on the ground for businesses, or are companies still facing the same old challenges in finding the right people?
It's a great question. So I'm not super familiar with the study and the parameters of it. So let me speak a little bit about what I'm seeing sort of on the ground. I think from a local development perspective, I'm pleasantly surprised. I think there is great talent on the ground. And I think this is obviously a result of the long-term initiatives, the development of great universities and education policies here. And I think that it's great that now as an employer, we see that, look, we have actually a local, hiring a local talent option. We don't always have to look overseas in order to hire when we need to. I think that today, substantially most of our staff are Malaysian. I think probably except for tech, and we can talk a little bit more of around that, where I think we still have had to look abroad for some foreign talent. Now, in terms of sort of foreign talent, I think that we are seeing more and more people are open to Malaysia. And when you sort of make an offer, you want them to move to Malaysia, it is an option that people consider. And in fact, for us, we have hired a number of returning Malaysians from Singapore. And obviously, there is a personal angle, returning Malaysians, as they consider the option here. But the fact is that we are able to make a compelling proposition for them to come back to Malaysia and work here, which is, I think, something not many people would consider some years ago.
All right, that is the situation that we need to take a look on. Skills for the future, we also still lacking enough STEM graduates in the apprenticeships. How big of a problem is this for industries, especially that are moving fast into digital and tech-driven growth?
I think it's still a meaningful problem. I think that if you look back in sort of early days when we were building the Carson business, you'd sort of see the people hiring, and they're very often from the same similar circles. We hired a lot of people from Shopee, from Lazada, and I think there's also a little bit of AirAsia that you've probably seen in the press around it. And just as another example, we approved to hire another sort of 10 headcounts in the tech department a few months ago. And I'd say that half the positions that we're looking to hire is still open. And partly because of this, we still keep a team of tech talents in China. So we sort of spread out our tech team across Malaysia and China. So I do think that specifically to tech itself, I think the sort of newer areas, for example, things like AI, data science, these are still areas where we can do with more talent on the ground and the whole. But the good thing is, I think we are seeing developments there. We do, I think, per se, half of our AI work, or more than that, locally, and it's something that I think we keep trying to do so. But yeah. You hope to see more improvement, more graduates, more talent in the STEM area, specifically in Malaysia.
And definitely we need all collaborations from the private and public sector to bring more talent in, and also not also talking about skill for the future, but also keeping the talent here. We know that Malaysia scores well on talent retention, but the cost of living, if you connect it, and wage pressures are also rising. How are companies managing to keep the talent motivated and prevent from brain drain? Maybe they are happy at this one company, but they know that the salary that they are having right now can't keep up or cannot catch up with their cost of living.
Yep. So, I mean, about cost of living, to be honest, I think that the cost of living in Malaysia, relatively speaking, is still quite attractive relative to our neighbor in Singapore. I think for the quality of lifestyle here, for the sort of the cost of education for your kids, and the sort of quality of it, I think it's still Malaysia still offers a very good proposition. And I think that ultimately, as a employee, and I am a returnee myself, I'm Malaysian, I studied abroad, and I chose to come back here. I think what you need to look at is really what is the cost of living versus, like you say, what is the proposition, what is the wage, what is the package, the compensation package available here, and how do you balance it out? And I think that, you know, the cost of living, I say, in Malaysia is still, it has come up, but it is still manageable. But I would probably, as a sort of, from my perspective, as an employer perspective, maybe a better way, a win-win approach to sort of retain more talent here, simply to pay more. Then the question becomes, how do we pay more? Now, I do think that, you know, in order to pay more, it's not just a matter of like, oh, employers, we, you know, have to pay more. We need to create value so we can afford to pay more. We need to make the businesses here in Malaysia bigger and better so we can leverage the quality of the talent here. So what I mean by that is, for example, we do need to sort of think about how we can be more successful. How can Malaysian companies succeed not just locally, but also regionally and internationally? So I think that we have had a lot of success cases in Malaysia. You see a lot of great successful consumer companies like Mr. DIY, AirAsia, Zeus, all these companies expanding regionally and doing very well. We see our semiconductor companies selling globally and carving a very strong niche, very big market share within their space and being able to address that global addressable market. So I think that, you know, look, it's probably more important or structurally, the simpler way to retain talent is to pay more by being more successful. And I think that is a point I probably want to make throughout, that talent is not just about the supply, it's also about the demand. And I think making the whole ecosystem work together on the supply and demand side is how we can succeed here.
All right, we're also climbing the ranking for the global talent in Southeast Asia. But how important is this position? And could Malaysia lose its edge if countries like Thailand or Indonesia move faster in talent reforms?
To be completely honest, I'm probably less worried about competition from our neighbors, because I do think that talent is global. I think within CARSM, we actually don't just, you know, hire Malaysians, and obviously we have people from South Asia, but we also have very good engineers from South Asia, India, Pakistan, Eastern Europe, and like I said, we have a good tech team in China. And these sort of talent globally are always looking out for global opportunities. So even if countries like Thailand and Indonesia move faster in talent reforms, I don't think that, you know, it means that we will not have sufficient talent. If we can focus on Malaysia doing well, and if, you know, Indonesia and Thailand actually do well, and South Asia as a sort of entire region do better, I do think that it's actually good for everyone. It will attract more people globally to Malaysia as a place where people think about building careers, think of it as a place to build career and a good place to live. So I think that it's not about competition regionally, it's about thinking globally.
Thinking globally, maybe we can learn something from our regional peer as well. But take a look on the new updates on what Singapore companies cannot hire foreign freelancers for creative sectors, for like photography, we can say that videography, makeup service, and other creative work. Will this restriction also reduce the opportunity for a global collaboration and innovation in Singapore? What's your perspective on this?
I think that is a very interesting news article. I think it just came out, right? So I've only had a quick chance to look at it. I think that it's something which is specific to protect the local talent, because there are, obviously Singapore offers a very high wage and attracts a lot of talent from the region, whether it's Malaysia, Indonesia, to go in there and do work that, otherwise the local talent charge a higher wage. But I do think that in this specific case, it is Singapore protecting their local talent, because the local talent, as I think that regulation pointed out, they do need to pay local taxes. They need to pay for the sort of EPF equivalent in Singapore, healthcare insurance, so that pushes their costs a lot higher. While at the same time, you know, like the cost of living in Singapore, as we discussed, is a lot higher than the rest of the region. So I think while there's specific niches that make this creative industry and protecting it a little bit different from other industries. But I think that in general, countries all around the world are becoming a bit more protective. Like besides Singapore, you look at US and how they are focusing a lot more on US first. So I think that there is probably going to be a bit more policies, probably not just one country, but a number of countries that will be focused on developing local talent, protecting local talent. And this is probably just the way the world will work for in I don't know, the near future?
The future is very important, and we know that talking about talent who is transitioned globally in reforms, and we want to take a look where will the workers stand in 2026 and also in the next 10 years. The report of the global ranking also praises our infrastructure, Malaysia infrastructure, but points out weak education spending and limited apprenticeships. What more can industries themselves do to close or bridge these gaps, and how do they see the payoff from investing in talent?
I think that investing in talent is incredibly rewarding, and more than incredibly rewarding, frankly, it is a necessity. I think we spoke a little bit about countries being more protective. I do think that this is a trend that will continue, and I think that we do need to think about how do we create a bigger pool of local talent that can bring us to greater heights. So I think, at least for CARSM, we have a view that we need to be ready to hire and be ready to train. So we do not just hire and expect them to be fully functioning at 100% level from day one. To give you a few examples, we do have a large internship program where we do collaborate with various government agencies like HRDC. And we do see many of these interns convert into full-time, and I think gives us a lot of satisfaction to see a lot of these interns become very, very capable full-timers doing a job that they enjoy, and working with us to build a bigger and better company. We also have another initiative called CARSM Academy, where we provide technical and vocational education and training to anyone who's interested in the automotive industry. So we have very interesting programs like EV, how do you sort of inspect, maintain, repair EVs. So I think we actually put a lot of these programs on our website, and anyone is free to apply for it. And I think this is partly because we realize it's actually very difficult to hire people who already have EV expertise. Just using as an example, it's something which will take, will cost a lot of money. It'll be hard to find, and it's something that we need to develop right here, right now. So I think these are some examples of the things that industries are doing to close, these gaps, and the investments in talent that we're doing. We don't have an AI academy right now, but I think we are working with some very capable Malaysia talent. So I think even on something a bit more cutting edge like that, hopefully we will have some developments there in the near future.
All right, this is a very good input. I would say thank you very much for joining us and sharing your inputs and the trend in Malaysia's and globally for how and where will the workforce stand in the future. Again, I would say thank you very much to our guest, YK Wong, the Chief Financial Officer of CARSM, and definitely all of our discussion here will be featured in AWANI.com and across all social media platforms.
Abang nak keluar dari sini kan?
Kita cari bilik sewa. Ni rumah saya.
Jangan sentuh adik aku! Dia pergi mana?
Ada nampak tak dua orang budak ni? Ni, saya cari dua orang budak ni. Tak ada sini nak.
Awak mau ambil jadi anak ya, tapi awak kena masuk Islam. Ha? Uncle Mike.
Ini pertama kali saya raya tak ada adik-adik.
Tuhan tak bagi apa yang kita nak. Dia bagi apa yang kita perlu.
Uncle Mike buat saya percaya yang ada lagi orang baik dekat dunia ni.
Orang Melaka, ayuhlah kita jumpa di Aeon Mall Bandaraya Melaka 27 dan 28 September ini. Kami nak terus kongsi ilmu berniaga di jelajah jiwa SME. Dapatkan strategi bisnes terkini, peluang jaringan dan juga persembahan artis semuanya di bawah satu bumbung. Mana lagi? Melaka lah.
Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Ada yang perdebatan bahawa GST perlu dikembalikan semula kerana ada yang mempertikaikan bahawa SST itu tidak efektif.
Isu buruh kanak-kanak bukan sahaja dalam bentuk fizikal tetapi juga bentuk moden yang lebih licik dan juga terselindung.
Kita tengok buruh kanak-kanak dan ada juga buruh paksa kanak-kanak.
Kumpulan FB dikenali sebagai grup budak-budak sekolah rendah yang didakwa menyebarkan gambar remaja perempuan tidak senonoh telah pun ditutup.
Baik, kita akan teruskan dengan perkembangan nilai mata wang ringgit bersama Bursa Malaysia, dan sebelum itu kalau kita lihat pada minggu ini kita baru saja bermula daripada cuti sepenuh hari Malaysia daripada 15 September sehinggalah 16 September Selasa malam. Kita lihat pada ketika itu pasaran berada dalam keadaan ditutup. Namun kalau kita lihat setakat pagi ini bagaimanakah perkembangan nilai ringgit Malaysia berbanding mata wang dolar Amerika Syarikat? Ia berada pada 4.1935 dan ini adalah paras ataupun persas nilai ringgit Malaysia berbanding USD setakat jam 9.38 pagi. Dan kalau kita nak melihat bagaimanakah pergerakan nilai mata wang ringgit dalam tempoh seminggu ataupun 7 hari, nilai ringgit Malaysia mengalami tren mengukuh apabila graf ini semakin menurun mencermin atau menyifatkan nilai ringgit Malaysia semakin kukuh berbanding dolar Amerika Syarikat. Manakala kalau kita lihat ia semakin meningkat graf ini, ia bermakna nilai ringgit Malaysia semakin lemah berbanding mata wang utama yang lain. Dan kalau kita lihat dalam tempoh daripada 11 September, nilai ringgit Malaysia berada dalam keadaan yang 14.09 meningkat. Ini menunjukkan ringgit Malaysia lemah sehingga ia mencapai dalam tempoh seminggu paras yang paling lemah adalah 4.2228 berbanding dolar Amerika Syarikat. Namun kalau kita lihat masuk 12 September sehinggalah pada 17 September pagi ini, nilai ringgit Malaysia kembali mengukuh berbanding USD sehingga ia mencapai pada tahap yang terkini dalam tempoh 7 hari ia berada pada paras 4.1833 dan ini adalah prestasi nilai ringgit Malaysia yang dapat kita saksikan dalam tempoh terdekat dan setakat pagi Rabu pada 17 September 2025. Dan kita akan beralih juga kepada indeks utama Bursa Malaysia FBMKLCI. Setakat pagi ini ia berada pada paras peningkatan iaitu sebanyak 1601.27 ataupun kita lihat update 1601.30 peningkatan sebanyak 1.17 atau 0.07%. Berdasarkan laman web ini kita dapat lihat ia adalah catatan pada jam 9.24 pagi secara tepatnya. Dan dalam tempoh 5 hari sehingga kita lihat bagaimanakah pergerakan Bursa Malaysia sehingga ia mencapai pada tahap terkini. Bursa Malaysia sebenarnya mengalami peningkatan yang perlahan iaitu kita lihat mendata prestasinya sehinggalah sejak Jumaat minggu lepas Bursa Malaysia naik mencanak sehingga ia mencapai pada tahap yang tertinggi dalam tempoh 5 hari ini pada 1600.99. Namun pagi ini kita dapat saksikan Bursa Malaysia lebih tinggi berbanding tempoh 5 hari yang lepas iaitu 1601.56 dan ini adalah prestasi ataupun pergerakan indeks utama Bursa Malaysia yang dapat kita saksikan dalam tempoh terdekat terutamanya 5 hari daripada Selasa sehinggalah Rabu pagi. Dan setakat pagi ini adalah prestasi yang dapat kita saksikan. Dan kita akan beralih kepada AWANI iaitu perkembangan lain iaitu mari kita saksikan perkembangan AWANI International. Wall Street's three main stock indexes ended lower in choppy trading on Tuesday as caution set in ahead of an anticipated interest rate cut from the Federal Reserve. Investors are largely still pricing in a 25 basis point cut from the US Central Bank at the conclusion of its two-day meeting on Wednesday to offset the deteriorations in the US labor market, evidenced by numerous recent economic indicators. Data on Tuesday showed that US retail sales increased more than expected in August, but that did little to change rate cut expectations. Investors also brushed off news that the US Senate confirmed White House economic advisor Stephen Mnuchin to the Fed board, and an appeals court rejected President Donald Trump's bid to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook.
We've already seen a huge run-up in the stock market and the bond market just in the first 15 days of September here. Everybody's expecting consecutive rate cuts. September, as well as 2 more in 2025. And now we have 6 total rate cuts priced in just in the next 15 months. So we've already moved the goalpost, so to speak, on what success looks like and what the Fed's going to be doing for the next 15 months or so. Now we need, consumers and earnings, et cetera, to kind of bring us forward. We had a fairly good Atlanta GDP now come out today. I think it's at like 3.5%. We had good consumer spending this morning. So I don't think the market does a whole lot over the next 24 hours up until that Fed announcement. And people are really going to be watching dissents. And are there any dissents for 0 Fed cuts? I expect a couple of dissents for 50 basis points of cuts, but I'm really have my eyes on whether or not anyone on any of the voting members are going to argue for no Fed cuts tomorrow. So Trump comes out, says we no longer need quarterly reporting by public corporations. And this kind of melds with the theme of deregulation. Let's eliminate barriers for American companies that are on the U.S. exchanges to succeed. And, I personally would not want to be one of the CEOs of a public company that it seems like every day you're trying to manage expectations and manage results for shareholders. And you're on the hook once a quarter at least to meet those expectations. Any type of removal of that, if you go from 4 to 2 times a year of having to do that, A, you free up a lot of time. B, it's expensive to actually do reporting, do those quarterly reports. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of people involved. So it goes along that theme. I don't think it really helps or hurts investors at the end of the day. I don't think that quarterly expectations and these quarterly conference calls add that much value in this day and age. So it is it's a maneuver, but I'd call it more of a deregulatory maneuver versus a corporate governance maneuver.
The S&P 500 utilities and real estate sectors led decline among peers. The CBOE Volatility Index climbed to its highest level in more than a week. Losses in United Health Group and Nvidia bogged down the Dow. Nvidia shares fell after Reuters reported weak demand in China for its new AI chip. The S&P 500 lost 8.52 points or 0.13% to end at 6,606.76 points, while the Nasdaq Composite lost 14.79 points or 0.07% to 22,333.96. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 125.55 points or 0.27% to 45,757.90. On Monday, President Donald Trump said U.S. companies should be allowed to report earnings every 6 months instead of on a quarterly basis, announcing that could prove to be a major shift for corporate America. The president said on his social media site Truth Social that change, which he had previously called for in 2018, would cut costs and discourage short-sightedness on the part of publicly traded companies. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission said it was making Trump's proposal a priority. All right, we're going to take a look at the US market as of 17 September 2025. We're going to take a look on the Finviz website, and we're going to start within the software infrastructure. In the S&P 500 index, where every stock is categorized by sector and industry, where you see all the size represents all the market cap. And we can see we're going to start with Microsoft first. Microsoft, as of this morning, is 1.23%. And Microsoft is planning to invest more than $30 billion in its UK operations and artificial intelligence infrastructure over the next 4 years. The software maker said on Tuesday ahead of US President Donald Trump's second state visit to Britain. In the plan, Microsoft will expand its UK capital expenditures by $15.5 billion and bring 23,000 advanced AI chips to the UK, company President Brad Smith told reporters. The UK business's climate has improved in the past few years, Smith said, after the country's antitrust regulator dropped opposition to Microsoft Activision Blizzard's acquisition in 2023. Next, we're going to move on with the NVIDIA update, which is within the semiconductor industry or sector. NVIDIA is also down by 1.61%, and the latest update on NVIDIA RTX 6000D, its newest artificial intelligence chips tailored for the Chinese market, has seen only lukewarm demand, with some major tech firms opting not to place orders. Two people with knowledge of procurement discussions said. The RTX 6000D, designed mainly for AI inference, is seen as expensive for what it does, the two people said. They added that testing of samples show its performance lags the RTX 5090, a chip banned by the US for use in China, but which is still readily available through grey market channels at less than half than RTX 600D's price of around 50,000 yuan, which is $7,000. Chinese tech giants, including Alibaba, Tencent and ByteDance, are also waiting for clarity on whether orders from NVIDIA's H2O chip will be processed, separate source said earlier this month. The US firm regained permission to sell the H20 in July, but shipments have yet to restart. Additionally, the firms are hoping that NVIDIA's B30A, a much more powerful chip than the H20, will be approved by Washington. The three chips are downgraded versions of models sold outside China, developed to comply with export restrictions put in place by the United States, which wants to rein in Chinese tech progress and retain its lead in AI development. And next, we're going to go for the updates on the Amazon, which is under the internet retail industry. Amazon is up by 1.13%, and the latest updates on Amazon has teamed up with Faye to provide personalized insurance cover dietitian services through the e-commerce giant's digital health platform, the nutrition care startup said on Tuesday. And why it's important? The move makes Faye the first nutrition care provider on Amazon's health benefits connector, which helps enroll customers match with digital health companies for health conditions such as diabetes or musculoskeletal issues, as well as mental health support. Faye use artificial intelligence to match users with registered dietitians based on their goals and health history. The startup did not disclose financial terms of the partnerships. And that is the latest updates on Amazon. And for the newest and latest update for Tesla, Tesla shares jumped 6% in early trading on Monday after CEO Elon Musk disclosed his purchase of about $1 billion worth of the electric vehicle maker's stock in the latest vote of confidence from the billionaire in the company's future. The stock's purchase, Musk's first open market buy since early 2020, comes at a critical time for Tesla as it races to hit its ambitious goals of transforming into an AI and robotics powerhouse while grappling with slowing car sales. The move also reinforced Musk's push for greater control over Tesla and comes just over a few weeks after the company board proposed a $1 trillion compensation plan for Musk, addressing Musk's demands and the setting out lofty financial and operational targets. Musk had purchased 2.57 million shares on Friday, paying between $372.37 and $396.54 per share, and this is according to the regulatory filing on Monday. And the update for Tesla as of this morning is up by 2.82%. We move on next to the Google update. As of this morning, is down by 0.14%, and Meta is up, the opposite performance of Google, which is 1.87%. For Google specifically, said on Tuesday it would make £5 billion, which equals to $6.80 billion in new investments into Britain ahead of US President Donald Trump's state visit to the country, which is expected to feature a flurry of businesses, deals and partnerships. The US tech company also announced the opening of a new data center close to London, designed to help meet growing demand for its AI-powered services like Google Cloud, Search, Maps and Workspace. The investment is a powerful vote of confidence in the UK economy and the strength of our partnership with the US Financial Minister Rachel Reeves said in the company's statements. The Alphabet's own company said the investment is projected to create 8,250 jobs annually at British businesses. And we can say that the announcement will be seen as a boost for British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's Labour government, which is hoping to attract private investment to grow a sluggish economy and regain momentum in national opinion polls. The Trump visit is also expected to deepen economic ties between the two Western allies. Senior US officials have said that economic deals worth over $10 billion would be announced. And that is the few updates within the S&P 500, which is the US market, and definitely we will continue to bring updates domestically and globally, especially within the US market. All right, next we're going to move on the next stories, which is on the Trump. We can say that the Treasury yield curve could steepen as investors demand higher compensations for perceived fiscal and political risks amid rising pressure from the Trump administrations on the US Federal Reserve bond fund managers said on Tuesday. President Donald Trump's persistent criticism of the Fed board and Chair Jerome Powell for not lowering interest rates and his attempts to change the voting board's composition are chipping away at investors' confidence in the institution's authority. Yield curves steepen when long-term rates rise faster than short-term, reflecting concerns about a resurgence in inflation and bigger US deficits. A popular trade this year, especially in the 5-year, 30-year yield curve, has been for investors to buy the shorter end and sell the 30-year bond. Skepticism over the Fed's independence is beginning to weigh on long-end yields, even as markets continue to conditionally trust the central bank, he said. Persistent US deficits and heavy bond issuance have kept long-term treasuries pressured, even as short-end yields price in more aggressive Fed rate cuts. The 2-year yield, which typically moves in step with Fed rate expectation, fell to 3.51% on Tuesday after climbing to spur bets on policy easing. Stephen Parker, co-head of global investment strategy at JP Morgan Private Bank, said investors were not being adequately compensated for inflation and fiscal worries, with the long end of the Treasury curve being most sensitive to those risks. NVIDIA RTX 6000Ds is newest artificial intelligence chips tailored for the Chinese market has seen only lukewarm demand, with some major tech firms opting not to place orders. Two people with knowledge of procurement discussions said on Tuesday. The chip, designed mainly for AI inference tasks, is seen as expensive for what it does, the two people said. And they added that testing of samples show its performance lags the RTX 5090, a chip banned by the US for use in China, but which is still readily available through grey market channels at less than half the RTX 6000D's price. Chinese tech giants, including Alibaba, Tencent and ByteDance, are also waiting for clarity on whether orders from NVIDIA's H20 chip will be processed, separate sources said earlier this month. The US firm regained permission to sell the H20 in July, but shipments have yet to restart. NVIDIA began shipping the RTX 6000D this week, according to one of the people. The sources were not authorized to speak to media and declined to be identified. TikTok is set to continue operating in the United States as the landmark deal between Washington and Beijing nears finalization, sources close to the matter reveal. The agreement, which has been under negotiation for years, aims to address US national security concerns by ensuring American users' data is stored and managed independently from China. ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, will not be required to sell the app, making a shift from previous demands under the Trump administration. The key elements of the agreement include the requirement for TikTok to store and manage US user data separately from its China-based systems. A third-party entity will be appointed to oversee the handling of this data, ensuring it remains isolated from foreign access. Additionally, the US government will implement strict oversight mechanism to monitor TikTok's operations and compliance with the agreement. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told CNBC on Tuesday the commercial terms of the deal had in essence been done since around March, with just a few details left to be ironed out. This development could ease tensions in the ongoing tech standoff between the two superpowers while allowing TikTok to maintain its massive US user base. US President Donald Trump arrived in Britain late on Tuesday for a second state visit. Trump's plane landed at London Stansted Airport, where he was greeted by officials including British Foreign Secretary David Cooper and Viscount Henry Hood, representing Britain's King Charles. The US President and First Lady Melania boarded a helicopter that was expected to take them to Winfield House, the official residence of the United States Ambassador to the United Kingdom, where they will stay overnight. During the visit, the two nations are expected to seal deals worth more than $10 billion, a renewal of a special relationship Prime Minister Keir Starmer is keen to champion. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio also arrived in London on Tuesday to join President Donald Trump's delegations for his unprecedented second state visit. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and British Finance Minister Rachel Reeves were leading events before Trump's arrival, announcing a transatlantic task force to deepen work between two of the world's largest financial centers. China has made a breakthrough in grain output and better ensure its food security during the 14th five-year plan period 2021 until 2025, said Minister of Agriculture and Rural Affairs Han Jun on Tuesday. Han made the remarks at a press conference hosted by the State Council Information Office on the achievements in agricultural and rural development during the 14th five-year plan period. He said China has better ensured that food supply remains firmly in its own hands for its 1.4 billion people. The country's grain output has reached a new level during the period, with the total grain output exceeding 700 million tons for the first time in 2024, an increase of 37 million tons from 2020. Now, China's per capita share of grain has reached 500 kilograms, and the country has achieved basic self-sufficiency in cereal grains and absolute grain security, which fully guarantees national food security. According to official data, the rise in production has been underpinned by improvements in farmland infrastructure and agricultural technology. China has developed more than 66.7 million hectares of high-standard farmland. Meanwhile, sci-tech advancement has become a key driver for grain harvest, with its contribution rate rising to 63.2%. Meanwhile, farmers' incomes have grown at a robust pace since 2001, with rural per capita disposable income reaching 23,119 yuan, about $3,255 in 2024. Before 2024, the country's annual grain output had been above 650 million tons for 9 consecutive years. Swiss Economy Minister Gaur Parliament on Tuesday formally signed a free trade agreement that was concluded earlier this year with the Mercosur states, his ministry said. Parliament signed the deal in Rio de Janeiro with representatives of the other member states of the European Free Trade Association's EFTA, his ministry said in a statement. The free trade deal will enable tariff savings for Swiss companies of over 155 million Swiss francs or $197 million per year in commerce with the bloc.
We are gathered to mark and celebrate a significant milestone, the signing of a broad free trade agreement between Mercosur and the EFTA states. This is a moment of pride and optimism. In a world marked by uncertainty and fragmentation, this agreement sends a clear and positive signal that cooperation, openness and mutual respect remain the best way forward. Today, we are writing a new chapter in that relationship, one that looks to the future. This agreement is ambitious and comprehensive. It improves market access for goods, creates new opportunities for service providers, and strengthen legal certainty for investors. It also includes provisions on intellectual property rights, public procurement, and competition. Yet, beyond these technical elements lies something even more essential: trust. Trust that, despite differences in geography, size, and economic structure, we can build a true partnership.
The Brazilian Vice President Geraldo Alckmin said the recent prison condemnation against former President Jair Bolsonaro would not affect the country's foreign relations. The Swiss government will submit the accord to Parliament for approval, and it will take effect once the approval processes among the signatories have been completed.
This is, we know today with high degree of certainty, the warmest temperature on Earth over the past 100,000 years. Since we left the last ice age 18,000 years ago, we've never seen not only temperatures at this level that we experience right as we speak, but we've never seen the rate of warming as we see right now. But also over the past decade, we see this accelerated rate of warming, meaning that unexpectedly, the rate of warming seems to go faster than we had expected. We know it is a combination of, for sure, natural variability like solar cycles and El Niño events, but also changes in air pollution, changes in hydrology and cloud dynamics, and changes in the carbon uptake capacity in nature, meaning how much carbon is taken up in the ocean and carbon taken up in forest systems. The Greenland ice sheet, the West Antarctic ice sheet, abrupt thawing of permafrost up in the Arctic zone, collapse of all the tropical coral reef systems. I mean, here we're talking livelihoods of 200 to 400 million people across the world, and collapse of the Barents Sea ice. Just those two ice sheets, the Greenland ice sheet and West Antarctic ice sheet, represent 10 meters sea level rise. It cost the global economy over $200 billion in all the droughts, floods, heat waves, fires, disease outbreaks. The IPCC projections, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, projects that by 2030, 2035, we are very likely going to breach 1.5 more permanently, because scientifically we define global mean surface temperature as the moving 10-year average. So 2024 was a taste of the future, but it wasn't a permanent breaching. Now, the best scenarios to solve the climate crisis is that we breach 1.5, but can still come back to 1.5. So we definitely need to hold 1.5 still alive, but it will take us many decades, 3-4 decades, and that we will have an overshoot period before we can come back. And we come back only if we phase out fossil fuels, as has been agreed in the Dubai statement of accelerating and starting the transition away from fossil fuels, but also that we need to come back into the planetary boundaries on protecting nature's capacity to be carbon sinks. Scientifically, we can say that every 1/10 of a degree matters, keeping that overshoot to a minimum. 1.6 is more manageable than 1.7. And again, remember that we're talking mean temperatures here. It might seem a little to talk of a 1/10 of a degree, but a 1/10 of a degree of average temperature on planet Earth is what translates to extreme weather events.
felt need was to change the mindset of the younger people towards agriculture, and also to provide job opportunities to young people through innovative urban farming.
I first seek permission, then I told my grandma, can I easily construct my farm here because I have skills I've gained. I showed her my notes, I showed her my plan, and then I started constructing.
Uniform Tentera Darat Malaysia TADM bagi peserta program latihan khidmat negara tidak seharusnya menjadi isu hangat.
Jenayah penipuan pelaburan mencatatkan jumlah kerugian tertinggi pada tahun ini setakat 2 Februari lalu.
Kementerian Pendidikan memandang serius isu peningkatan trend penggunaan rokok elektronik.
Lembaga Lebuh Raya Malaysia LLM memperluaskan larangan kenderaan berat memasuki lebuh raya pada waktu puncak di beberapa jajaran terpilih di sekitar Lembah Kelam.
Saat keadilan gagal, timbul rasa dendam.
The mistake you made was you killed my friend.
Suatu kematian yang menuntut balasan.
The last happened in my life.
Balas dendam atas nama cinta. Adiknya adalah segalanya.
보이스 피싱 3,200이요?
잡을 수 있죠. Seorang wanita yang digeruni para penipu. Tiada belas kasihan, hanya pembalasan. Stream kesemuanya sehingga 4 peranti. Mudah.
Kepada yang setia, berdiri teguh serta sorakan bergema. Merseyside Derby yang membara menanti. Rasai bahang di Old Trafford. Pilihan anda, Arsenal atau City? Inilah One for the Fans. Saksikan pertempuran paling sengit Premier League secara langsung dan eksklusif di Astro.
Tariffs on imports of products from China reaching up to 145%.
Tariffs on the rest of the world are sitting at 10%, with the potential for reciprocal tariffs to be reimposed within 90 days.
Kunjungan rasmi Presiden China ke Malaysia ini menunjukkan komitmen kedua-dua negara untuk meningkatkan hubungan diplomatik ke tahap yang lebih strategik.
Good morning and welcome to Niaga AWANI with me, Nabila Khalida. We have a lot to unpack today, but right now we're diving into a topic that affects every business and individual in the digital age, which is AI-enhanced cybercrime. So joining us is Arun Kumar, the Regional Vice President of Manage Engine, a global leader in IT management and cybersecurity solutions. Arun, thank you for joining us, and let's begin with the big picture. We've seen a surge in AI-driven scams and cybercrime in Malaysia. So can you walk us through the real-world signs that AI-enhanced cybercrime is already affecting individuals and also businesses here, please?
So very good morning. Thank you very much for hosting me. So if you look at cyber threats across the world has been on the rising trend over the last few years, right? So for various reasons, given that many organizations pushing for digital transformation, so which includes changing the way they operate, right? So a lot of applications going on cloud and mobile-first approach, very distributed workforce. A lot of this are primary reasons because the attack surface today is very big, very different, and that is one of the primary reasons why across the world you could see that the cyber attacks are actually increasing, and Malaysia is actually no different to it. But what's really a concern for many countries, including Malaysia, is the AI-driven attacks, right? So when we talk about the AI-driven attacks, this happens in big scale. Take the data of Malaysia in the last few quarters itself. The cyber attacks or the reported cases have actually increased by 20% and above, and 69% of the reported cases are actually on the phishing. And there is also data which is available which talks about the scam calls increasing by more than 82% compared to last year. On top of it, we could also know that deep fake videos, which includes celebrities, political leaders, which talks about using their videos for scam and investments, and also AI-generated images targeting minors, typically the school and college students. So this increase in scale is one of the primary concerns for Malaysia as well. So if you little bit deep dive why this is happening, so the benefits of AI into the hands of hackers means you can automate a lot of process and you can do it accurately using the firmographic and demographics information of the country, and you can also enhance it over a period of time at real scale. So this is the fundamental and primary reason you could see a lot of AI-driven attacks happening in Malaysia at larger scale in volume.
That's actually very alarming, and so we want to dig deeper. We see that AI is often as a tool for defense, but increasingly it's being weaponized by attackers. So how exactly are cyber criminals using AI to bypass traditional security systems, and what makes these attacks so hard to detect?
Yep. So if you look at any cyber attack, right, it is just not one incident, it's a series of events. So if you look at from a hacker standpoint, there are 5 steps which they do to do an attack, right? Starts with data gathering, which includes collecting a lot of information about the industry, about the vulnerabilities, about the assets, on which company or which individual you wanted to target. And then you do the initial access, try to get into that network. Then there is a lot of persistent effort which gets involved, which means you try to find ways, navigate the defense system, existing tools, technologies, and then take a command and control of the infrastructure, and finally start extracting the data and exploit, right? So this usually needs a team, a big size with a lot of know-how on technology. And for both the parties involved here, time is a big essence. But with AI, you can automate the complete model. And it's just not about automating at every step. You can also do very hyper-personalized. So which means you collect the complete information using social engineering attacks, both from the corporate websites as well as from the social media websites. Go very personal based on the current situation. And in case if there is some defense mechanism in an organization to defend these attacks, the malware can actually learn by itself over a period of time, find different ways, avenues to penetrate. And when this happens in scale, when the model is able to learn, the AI really helps the hacker. So what I mean by that is, you don't need a big team. You don't need hackers to be technologically very advanced. And given that time is an essence for everybody, you can do this in few hours, right? So that is the big weapon which hackers have today when it comes to using AI to infuse attacks in organizations as well as in individuals.
But Arun, with that level of sophistication and looking ahead, what are the next big cyber threats that businesses and the public should be preparing for, or perhaps watching out for next, and especially in Southeast Asia?
Right, so if you look at AI-driven phishing attacks will continue because this goes super personalized today, right? So you're able to target very accurately depending upon the size of the organization, the maturity of their cybersecurity posture, and all of that. And AI-driven phishing attacks in the sense, you can also automate using a lot of chatbots it's very difficult for individuals today to understand whether they are interacting with humans or they are interacting with chatbots. And given that these messages are so personalized, what happens? You kind of trust people and tend to share information which you are not supposed to do. And on top of that, take the case of deep fakes itself, right? So we all know deep fakes is usually to spread misinformation. Usually political leaders are the targets. But when it comes to the corporate world, you can very well identify the corporate leader or the person whom you wanted to target, basically the person who has the complete access or who's close to this corporate leader. You can kind of do a very personalized video, voice, SMS, message, and all of that. And when you kind of try to target them so personalized, this impacts at scale over a period of time on more number of organizations with less number of people on the attacking side. That is one thing to be looked at. And with the arrival of Gen AI, a lot of organizations do invest in Gen AI capabilities. But on the Gen AI, when it is in the hands of hackers, there is something which we call as adversary AI and ML, which kind of comes with the forms of models like data poisoning, which is basically these language models learn over a period of time on the trained set of data, and using a prompt, it can give you a lot of answers. And what matters for organization is how accurate it is. Data poisoning is where the hackers inject incorrect or misinformation into the model itself. So the accuracy of the language model comes down, and then there is something called as model tampering. You talk about model tampering, these language model gets trained using certain models and structures. When that structure itself changed, again, the accuracy of the language model comes down. So which means AI used by organizations for productivity, for automation, for business outcomes, the information is incorrect. So this is something very serious organization needs to look at. And on top of it, if you take Southeast Asia as a region today, it's heavy on manufacturing and industry. So AI can be also used in IT, OT, and also it can impact on supply chain attacks. So what I mean by supply chain attacks here is manufacturing industries rely on a lot of other organizations to supply parts, go through the chain to deliver certain outcomes. When the associated industries get an impact, the production unit comes to an halt. So this is also one of the major concerns we have seen. And on top of that, many of these industries also goes on automation. So IT and operational technology, which is your machines, are well connected today to inject a lot of data to derive decisions. When that is also under attack, it impacts their productivity. So these are some of the threats which organizations should look at. Start right from adopting Gen AI capabilities to manufacturing industries when it comes to outside IT, and also the supply chain attacks which impact other organizations surrounding and manufacturing unit. These are some concerns which organizations should look at in Southeast Asia.
All right, indeed, like you mentioned earlier, deepfakes and real-time impersonation attacks are no longer science fiction. They're actually happening now. So what gaps still exist in our ability to detect and respond to these AI-specific threats? And as AI continues to evolve, how should cybersecurity strategies evolve with it? And what role does AI itself play in defending against all these threats? Arun.
Yeah, so I think it all starts with getting your foundations correct. So talking about foundations, even today, a lot of organizations take a very siloed approach when it comes to IT management and IT security. But what is the need of the hour today is have a very holistic and unified approach. So why it is important to track and measure every asset, every identity in an organization? It's because, like again, it is not just one incident which causes a breach or an attack. It is a series of events. So it's important organizations are able to proactively correlate if there is any anomaly and try to mitigate would be the first fundamental step. And it is always well advised for organizations to take a kind of like assessment through some third party and find out where do they lag in terms of the cyber maturity and what would be the impact for them in case if there is an attack in the next 6 months to 12 months. And there are certain standard frameworks which many organizations follow, like NIST cybersecurity framework. That could be a very good starting point to follow the recommendations processes, which helps to bring certain level of maturity for an organization. That could be some first foundation and fundamental step which organizations can look at. And second thing would be, many a times human links are the weakest chain in the cybersecurity. So it's important for employees in an organization to be trained regularly, keep them aware of what are the latest cyber issues happening across the world, and bring a very collective approach. Because a lot of organizations many a times tend to feel that cybersecurity is the responsibility of IT team, but that's not the case today. Everybody in the organization is accountable. So more training, more awareness is very much required. And finally, when it comes to deepfakes or AI-driven attacks, the other way to counter this is also using AI. So you have to invest in tools and technologies which also follow the latest trends, adopt as part of their product development, build AI capabilities on products which to a larger extent can help to automate and proactively mitigate attacks. So this is going to be a series of process, not just a one-time activity. So you have to look at getting your foundations right, do an assessment with third-party vendor, follow certain frameworks which are of global standards, and then get the right tools and technologies which also invest in AI. Could be one of the best practices and recommendations many organizations can follow. But it doesn't stop here, right? Because cybersecurity always goes by the model of if there is an attack, we'll be able to defend. But there is also something called as cyber resilience. So which means basically it's under the assumption that what tools you may invest, you are prone to attack. But if you are on an attack, how quick you are able to recover. So which means you follow certain processes, right? You have a backup in place, you do periodic assessment, and if there is an attack, recover quickly and do a proper incident response, notify the authorities, notify your customers, tell them what is the impact which is gone, and quickly fix those gaps, vulnerabilities, and you bounce back to operational stuff. So which is basically you build a business resilience on top of it. So having a very good cybersecurity process and along with that build cyber resilience could be the best approach organizations can follow in this evolving landscape.
All right, we have about 1 minute left. Maybe one final question before we wrap up. What advice would you give to businesses in Southeast Asia, especially in Malaysia, and individuals to protect themselves in this AI-driven threat landscape? Please.
Right, so the best recommendation for individuals, citizens, as well as organizations is don't take cybersecurity easily. Get your foundations correct, which includes having the right password policies, have multi-factor authentication in place, and just don't trust, always verify. This would be one of the best recommendations many organizations also follow, but it is important individuals and citizens also follow this approach.
All right, thank you, Arun, for those insights. It's clear that while AI brings incredible innovation, it also introduces new risks that we must address head-on. So to our viewers, stay vigilant, stay informed, and remember, cybersecurity starts with you. For now, we'll go for a short break. We will be right back.
Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
di sekolah. Isu ini bukan perkara baru.
Buli tertakluk kepada perbuatan agresif secara fizikal.
Apa sebenarnya jerebu punca utama yang menyumbang kepada masalah ini serta kesannya kepada kesihatan kita?
Mereka akan mengalami iritasi-iritasi kepada mata. Selain itu, iritasi kepada saluran pernafasan.
Daulat Tuanku.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Bersama saya Ehsan Yahya. Sempena Hari Malaysia 2025. Di bawah langit yang menyatukan Semenanjung, Sabah dan Sarawak, Hari Malaysia bukan sekadar tarikh dalam kalender dan ia adalah gema sejarah yang mengingatkan kita tentang janji perpaduan yang pernah dilafazkan pada 16 September 1963. Dari alunan ombak Laut Cina Selatan hingga ke rimba Borneo yang bernafas tenang, suara rakyat Malaysia bergema dalam pelbagai bahasa, budaya dan harapan. Namun di sebalik warna-warni sambutan, terselit persoalan yang lebih dalam. Sejauh mana kita benar-benar memahami makna penyatuan ini? Adakah semangat Malaysia itu hidup dalam dasar, dalam pembangunan dan dalam keadilan yang dirasai oleh setiap anak watan tanpa mengira wilayah? Hari Malaysia seharusnya menjadi cermin bukan sekadar perayaan untuk kita menilai semula jurang yang masih wujud antara wilayah dan wacana nasional. Dan Hari Malaysia menuntut kita untuk bukan hanya bersatu dalam sambutan tetapi bersatu dalam tindakan. Berbesar hati hari ini bersama dengan Tuan Mazlan Abdul Muttalib, Setiausaha bahagian kanan pengurusan Kementerian Komunikasi. Assalamualaikum Tuan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Lama sekali cantik baju. Patut saya pakai juga hari ini. Tapi ya, ini bukan kerja mudah. Banyak cabaran yang dilalui terutamanya untuk menceriakan suasana rakyat Malaysia khususnya sempena sambutan Hari Malaysia. Betul. Sebelum sambutan Hari Malaysia, sambutan Hari Kebangsaan hari itu bagaimana, Tuan?
Okey, cerita dia kan. Pertama, baru je habis
Ya.
Hari Kebangsaan yang baru ni saya dapat katakanlah yang amat meriah. Meriah pertama kerananya kalau tengok keadaan pengunjung saya dipanggil dalam 120,000 pengunjung rakyat Malaysia yang datang pada hari kejadian. Kan? Belum tu ada lagi kan masa hari Khamis, ada hari Jumaat, Sabtu tu dia orang datang juga. Yang tak sempat datang pada Ahad tu datang pada Jumaat. Tapi penonton dalam 20,000 kan. Tapi apa yang buatkan saya teruja tu, buat semangat tu bila tengok rakyat datang, kita rasa puas hati. Sangat betul tengok keadaan itu temannya anak-anak kecil lah. Yang dia punya kostum, baju dia tu kan. Ada yang bendera Malaysia, ada juga ada uniform, kan? Ada juga memang menarik lah. Dia bawa kibar bendera, kan? Jadi terubat orang kata perasa letih tu kan. Dan bila tengok TikTok baru ni kita tengok dalam ada kata yang uniform kan di tepi tu dia bagi tabik kepada apa pasukan yang sedang tu kan. Barak tu dan dia datang menyantuni budak tu. Rasa memang kata sangat meriah lah. Selain daripada itu juga dia sambutan Hari Kebangsaan yang lalu ni kan. Dia orang kata apa, bukan saja kita sambut tapi juga orang luar datang tengok. Kan? Ada terus nampak ada Mak Saleh, ada Afrika dan mereka pun orang kata nampak happy dia kata sangat happening dengan izin dan juga apa sampai itu saya sebenarnya kami tu dah lama dah 5 hari berkampung di situ. Masa kita orang datang dia dah kalau bola orang datang 5 jam awal kan. Tapi Hari Kebangsaan ni datang 12 jam awal. Pukul 8 pagi, pukul 8 malam dia dah ada lah. Dia dah booking tempat-tempat yang menarik sebab nak tengok barisan tu. Dan saya sedikit teruja ini masa kejadian malam tu kami nak pergi sambut Ambang Merdeka. Saya kebetulan terlintas ada seorang kanak-kanak dalam sekolah rendah tu Dia tanya dia, adik nak tengok apa dek? Jadi saya ingat dia akan cakap Abang Sado ke tengok tank ke ataupun tengok apa kapal terbang ke. Tapi jawapan dia buat saya terus je, kata saya nak lambai pada tuanku. Saya cakap ya Allah kan budak ni kan. Rupanya dia tahu tuanku akan datang dan lalu dia semangat dia tu nak lambai pada tuanku. Tu saya rasa amat istimewa. Jadi hari kebangsaan ni special sebab lah orang kata apa tuanku melalui tuanku Sang Raja Mansuri datang untuk bersama rakyat.
Ya, ini yang seronok kan tuan bila ada kebersamaan, pemimpin dekat dengan rakyat, pemerintah bersama dengan rakyat dan sebagainya. Ya.
Terus satu kata berumur dia budak kecil lepas tu ada yang lain dia kata dia nak nyanyi lagu negaraku beramai-ramai. Dan juga ikrar tu negaraku tak asas penting negara. Jadi saya ingat macam dia orang nak tengok barisan ke, rupanya ada banyak benda lain yang dia orang nak tengok sebab tu ramai.
Di sebalik kisah bila
tuan orang kata apa sangat puas saya.
Betul bila tuan cerita macam ni kita tahu kan kisah-kisah di sebalik anak-anak kecil yang berada